Hello and welcome to our latest edition of Selectmen's Roundtable. I am Beth Cassavant and I am joined with two of my colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, our chairman, Mo DiPaolo, and my other colleague, John LeBeau. And unfortunately, John Samia and Jim Kane are unable to be with us this evening. So we just have the three of us here to banter back and forth about the ongoings in the great town of Shrewsbury.
We don't have to share any FaceTime.
Let's press on.
So it's probably been, maybe 2 months since the last time we've sat down together. There's a lot that's gone on. We've made it through successfully the budget season and our annual town meeting. And now we're just into the summer months, which are still busy. I have people ask me sometimes if we take the summer off, but the answer is always no. There's lots to be done.
Do you remember the summers did get quiet, pretty quiet. I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. That just stopped.
It doesn't seem quiet.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's busy all through the year. I mean, granted, it's a little less in the summer, but it's busy.
Yep.
So I think one of the more interesting things that people have been buzzing about is the town center and the Beal School. And I know that you are the chair of the Beal Reuse Committee, and we've been talking about the visioning study that's been done. I know we'll be hearing about that a little later on, but do you have an update for us?
Well, I'm not going to give out too much information because actually on July 9th, the Reuse Committee is coming in to present a report to the board. But the visioning study was actually tied into the Beal reuse issue. That study was to look at the town center and what could be done to help energize that. But a lot of the time on that report was spent on the Beal School because it's so critical to the town center. So that report was finished, it was completed about a week or so ago. Actually, as we're taping this tonight, it's the same time as our meeting, just before our meeting, today's the 25th, right? I lose track now that I'm retired. So Mr. Mizikar will be speaking about that this evening. I will tell you that the recommendations are almost completed for the disposition of the school. And they tied into what we're trying to do in the center. So there's going to be zoning issues, what types of projects they would be. But one thing we decided we weren't going to do is to recommend a particular use or to either be there or not. In other words, either it's got to be all restaurants or no restaurants or whatever, no pharmacy or something like that. Because in our discussions with developers and the consultants we used, they said the market really needs to tell us what could work there. So we've kept the recommendations for how we approach it very broadly so that we can, cast the biggest net. And then once the RFP is written, and we are waiting for a grant to come in on that probably in next week or so, once that's written and the projects come in, then somebody at the town level is going to have to evaluate those. But it actually all came together in like the past month and a half. We've been doing this for about a year and a half. We've met, but it was so long ago there was nothing to focus on. We started before there was even a vote for the school.
Right, so that makes it hard.
And so we decided we had to stop. So we went into a hiatus. And we did a little bit of work, but once the school passed, it started to take on some life. And then with the visioning study coming in, the consultant really, I think he did a good job on the visioning study. So
now the consultant was paid for by a grant.
The consultant was paid for through a contract and a grant from Mass Development. And I forgot how much that was, but I think it was pretty steep. It might have been like $50,000. That Mass Development had worked with us to be able to put that whole, actually, they helped us put the grant proposal together, told us what we what the requirements were. Actually, Kristen Lass and Bernie Cahill put the proposal together, and then they negotiated with the potential consultants, and so this was all done under the watchful eye of Mass Development. One of the representatives was at least 3 of our meetings. They gave us a lot of input. I think it worked out well as it all came. Once it finally came together, I think, and I think people would be pleased with the town center study and what's being recommended.
Well, I think when I was reading through, and people can read through if you were interested in watching at home and hearing about this, it is on the website. If you were to search for Beal reuse, there's a report, and it's maybe 40 pages that you can read the report. And I think it connects back to the survey that went out to the community. Maybe was it October? I think not quite a year ago. I think it was in October.
The survey was part of the study.
Okay.
And previous to that, we had a parking study done, which actually fed into the visioning study, like how many parking spaces are in the center and that. So the surveys were actually the very early part of the consultant's work.
And the parking assessment, that was also a grant.
For Mass Development. So we got 2. That was an interesting study. I don't want to take up all the time, but we have a lot of parking spaces in what we would define as the town center. And that really is going down to as far as St. Mary's, but almost all of them obviously are private. And one of the things that a lot of communities are starting to do is they encourage businesses to do shared parking, so that one business that might, would allow other businesses, customers to use their parking kind of on their off hours. It's a little bit of a complicated thing, but it when it's done right, it works well. So you don't have a bunch of parking spaces sitting fallow at busy times just because a particular business happens to be closed. So the planning department's going to be working on that, talking with the property owners, and seeing if they can put something together on that, because parking is really the key. Being able to use the parking is key.
Well, do you know how, off the top of your head, how big the Beal parcel is? I don't.
It's small, like 3.5 acres or something like that. Don't remember off the top of my head.
And also, I'm putting you on the spot, is it zoned, is the whole parcel zoned the same, or is there split zoning?
No, actually, the
back it's
area down by
residential?
where the ball field is residential. But one of the interesting things about that, and it actually will come out tonight in the visioning study, is the town center, the business district, is the same as the Route 9 business district. And when you look at it, and when the consultants looked at it, reviewed it with us, that zoning down on Route 9 works on Route 9. It doesn't work in the center. So actually, one of the recommendations that'll be coming out will be to look at rezoning and creating a town center business district that would have different setbacks.
So we have a neighborhood business district, but that's not used in
Right,
the center?
I think that's an overlay down in Edgemere. I don't remember if that, I know there's an overlay in Edgemere, but yeah, after the consultant said it, we looked at it. The limited business district is not really conducive to what we're trying to do in the center. So
When I had read that, the difference was that when you're along Route 9, the thinking is people are automobile focused. And so there's a certain number of parking spaces that you need to have to accommodate people's cars, whereas we're trying to make the center walkable. And so the number of parking spaces needs to be different from what would be expected of like a Route 9 business.
Right. And just the setbacks and the amount of parking, it's completely different. Town centers, successful ones, from what we're told, buildings are very close to the street.
Parking in the back.
Usually maybe right on the sidewalk. The way we saw what happened with the bank that went in there, which was the way the zoning is zoned. And across the street where there's a dentist and I think a dermatologist over there now, they have their parking up in the front because of the setback requirements for the building. So the way it worked, you would have it that way, and that's not really conducive to having a walkable town center and that kind of a community with small shops and offices and stuff like that. So there'll be some recommendations that come out of that, but that I think are better for the town center. One of the interesting things that did come up was the types of buildings that would be in the center and how different buildings were important. There's a mix between really old buildings and then, mid-century or whatever. And how the library, and there was sensitivity in the library to trying to make it blend in as part of a historic district, and still needing to get the size of the building we wanted and the configuration we needed. But how that turned into actually a draw for the center, a bigger draw than what it was. So just a lot of little nuances in the whole thing like that. It's an interesting read.
It is, and it's such an interesting opportunity to be able to really think about how we want the town center to be built, almost from the ground up with
Right.
Beal.
It'll be a long-term process of, you zone it to what you want it to be, and then you encourage that to happen. But it's going to be the business owners, the landowners that are going to drive that, that decision. But we also have a Shrewsbury Town Center
Association.
and they're very active. They participated in the visioning study, and that's exciting. This is because the whole dynamic of, yes, the town can set up all the regulations, the things that need to be put in place to help people develop, but I guess these successful projects are best when there's a business association that's tied into it, a community association that's kind of driving the thing organically. So, anyways.
We even saw a little bit of it just this past weekend when the Rotary Club did their Brew and Food Fest at the Avidia Bank parking lot. Thrive Real Estate had something celebrating their 5 years across the street, and then the Shrewsbury Country Shop across from the library also had free gelato for all their customers. And people were...
I missed that.
You did, but people were walking. And it's funny because a lot of times you'll hear people say that it's so far, but when there was free gelato at the other end, there was really no one complaining that it was too far to go down that way to get it. And so I think that really shows that there's potential. It's just untapped potential.
Right. It's a lot of work, but I think that the association actually has some good ideas in the work that they'll want to announce when they're ready. But it sounds like this is really going to be the catalyst to get something going.
That's great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then we have groundbreaking planned for
You
the
can do-
Beal School.
Well, July 20-something,
22nd.
early in the morning, 8:30. Just a great stepping off point, but also a celebration of all the effort that went in. Certainly the Beal School has served the community extremely well. We've got our money's worth. And it's time for a new one. So we were able to work out some favorable arrangements to acquire the property. And we're off to the races in what, 2 years? 21?
Yeah,
2021.
That we hope to.
For opening.
Yeah,
August,
we-
It should be open for the
We're going to be able to occupy it
2021.
August 2021.
And based on our track record, we have every reason to expect that that's what's going to happen. So, folks, it's a public event if folks want to come, but it's a monumental step forward in our changing taking the oldest piece of inventory out of the school system. That's a big deal.
And to be able to get that land, because that acreage was not just the acreage for the school. We had already had, as you know, we had a lease on both sides of Lake Street where the soccer fields are, and then where Parquet was farming $1 a year for 25 years. That that went along with the purchase of the Glavin Center. And we already had owned the land through Jim Kane's work behind Home Depot. So we control that whole area up there now. We did flip the land over to the soccer fields, over to the soccer league, but they also have to sell the land back to us if they ever decide that they don't need it anymore. So we've got control, but hey, it's pretty exciting. I'm sure you remember when the farm was there, when it was a working farm. It was a big
Intense,
farm.
yeah.
Where though? Across the street? Where the
No,
farmland is now, or where
both
the
sides.
Glavin
Both
buildings
sides.
are?
Both sides, all the way down, almost to Route 9, where
Buffalo
Patel
Wild.
Brothers are, that
that side, too.
building, and all the way down there, both sides, all the way up, and down to Route 9, below Glavin Center.
Was it Paquette?
No,
this
it
was
was
the
a state farm. When they had,
this was, yeah, it
they
was
used to have state farms, and
for the
they
state
had
hospital. It was
they
the
had
state hospital. So patients would work it and grow the food that they would use.
right, and they had professional farmers. Actually, Kathy Harrison, I don't know if you remember her, she was in my class at Coolidge School. Her father was, he ran that farm. He was a farmer, and they lived in a house there, some really old house. I mean, it was put together with the wooden pegs and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so they had professionals running it, and they had individuals that were being served that lived at the state hospital. They farmed it. Actually, UMass was where UMass is. The hospital, that was a state farm too.
Interesting.
It was all, I remember.
And
when
that
they
was the
were farming
model.
that.
I mean,
Right.
Many state hospitals had their own farm, and they would use it both for the patients to do an activity that might not be the best way to express it, but to
Be engaged.
to be
Right.
engaged. Very
Have a
good,
purpose.
thank you. And also to, produce food. I was just thinking, Mo, you mentioned about acquiring the land. I mean, you read about in cities now, it's a question like, where are we going to put the school? And we are right on the cusp of running out of places to put schools.
I'm sure we looked at 40 sites to choose where to put
Right.
Beal.
And most of those, it's not that they were not the preferred alternative. They wouldn't work.
No.
And I mean, we did when we looked to put up the high school. I think we had 3 places really that we were very concerned or serious about. But so I mean, we are
The high school was where it is now. Was the last.
big.
It was at the bottom of the list, and it was the only one that would work because of wetlands and all that other stuff. Because of the amount of land that a high school needs, we had more options on an elementary school at the time. But yeah, it's going to get.
And
if
still,
we
it
have
came
build
down
an-
to 2.
We have to build another one. It's going to be tough.
I mean, but it's similar to what we did with Sherwood. Actually, if we're able to do that, use a parking lot next to the school, take the school down after you build the new school. But even that's tight because you got to find a place for people to park while this whole process is going on. So I mean, that's going to be a very interesting challenge at some point in time in the future.
But even if it's not a school, we're looking at the municipal
Well, right.
complex, especially the police station, and wondering where we would be able to put a new police
Probably
station.
be able to do it right there, but there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room though. But yeah, it's like all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I'm not just speaking about already municipally owned land. I'm just talking about land.
Land, right, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, as the town matures and evolves and it gets built up, this is becoming an issue that a generation ago was not an issue. There were places,
Yeah.
but with the build-out, that's what you get.
Actually, wasn't Oak Middle School, when they built the high school, wasn't that had been a farm?
Well, now, Mo, I don't know.
Jeez, you're the historian.
Yeah, well, I don't
I forgot
recall.
who's
I mean, they built it in
farm had been.
'57, Mo. We were 3.
Yeah.
I just don't remember that well.
No, I was told by some old folks who.
We'll have to check with the town historian on
Yeah,
that.
right. We'll have to talk to Mike Perna.
Definitely. It is interesting. So I guess switching gears a little bit, we had a meeting just last night on the Route 20 master plan, another area of town that's growing and developing and changing.
The actual master plan for the road, Route 20.
Right,
Right.
for the road. And it's a 20-year plan that began in 2017. And so they're looking at these changes and improvements being done, up until 2037, which
Right.
is very far away.
Last week, on the committee I'm on that allocates money in this area for road work, you have to create these plans. I mean, literally, they're out 25 years. Some of them are out 40. And Route 20, Shrewsbury and Worcester got added on in that time frame. It was like 2035. It could move forward.
That's the potential funding year?
They said at least 5 years
Yeah.
before there be any funding. That's what they said.
It
last
could
night.
move up, but it depends what happens. But yeah, this thing is like 15, 20 years out.
And it's all in phases.
And it's funny, I told some people who had, not last night, but who had been talking about Route 20 and all that, and I said, don't get too excited about this, because when we really get the money and it's time to do it, you're going to look at this again, and things might have changed, and maybe they'll be doing something more intense than what is being proposed right now, because there's more traffic or whatever. So, I mean, things could change. The good thing is, like Market Basket, which I think it's safe to say at this taping that the Market Basket people have actually submitted their plans, and they're going to be going to the planning board in July. But by laying out what the state thinks needs to be done on that road, and they actually have to project traffic out that far, if somebody comes in and wants to build on it, then they might have to do some of the mitigation work. So some of this stuff might happen organically as the corridor develops.
Right, they were hesitant to say where they're starting. It all depends on where the development is. And that public hearing, there's a public hearing with the planning board, they were saying last night, July 11th, on the Market Basket development.
Yeah, and that'll be the first of many.
But it's nice to see it start moving forward. I know that they've been doing site work, but you can't see that, so I can't see that.
Yeah, well, the next thing that's going to be done is the sewer work, because we're going to hook into Worcester. So we have to build a pump station. We had to build it anyways, build a pump station, reverse the flows, and get hook into that new pipe in Worcester.
But again, we have grant money
That was
to help with that.
no,
that grant?
that was sewer funds that did that. The road, we got a MassWorks grant for the road. That was specifically related to the Market
project.
Basket project, but that'll happen probably next year, because the sewer work is happening this year. There's going to be a lot going on. Exciting.
It is. Yeah, it'd be nice to see that. We've got our new trash program starting up in another week. I think that
Yeah.
the listening sessions and the information sessions were very helpful to residents from what I've seen, kind of the chatter on Facebook pages and just out and about in town. I think people have come to the realization that we don't do a very good job of recycling things that are actually recyclable.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the new trash hauler that's bringing in these sort of stipulations. It's actually an opportunity to reteach what is and isn't acceptable in the recycle stream, because the cleaner our recycling is, the better off we are as far as what they'll take.
And we're one of the cleaner communities. And part of the reason we are one of the cleaner communities in terms of the quality of the recycling is because
Not
we
single
don't have
stream.
single stream. We have dual stream.
Right.
So the glass and the cans got to be separated from the newspapers, and it makes a big difference. In communities now that China's not taking what they used to take, which was quite a bit, the processes are getting more strict because they're having trouble finding a place to put this. So the more they have to clean, the more it's going to mean that communities are going to have to pay. They're going to pay more because it's a fine basically that the processor charges you because they say, you're 40%, you're going to pay an extra, I don't know, whatever.
Right.
You're going to
Clean
pay
or
a certain
something
amount
else.
more because your stuff isn't clean. So it nice and convenient to have one big barrel, but cost-wise and actually efficiency-wise for the operations, it's not a good idea.
I think our David Snowden deserves a huge shout out for the many sessions that he attended, and he seems to be the go-to guy now when I have a question as to something
the
that
trash
can or
mover.
can be recycled. I'm sure that he won't feel bad about having to turn that responsibility over to Waste Management in another week or so, because that's who gets the phone calls when there's an issue or if there's an issue.
Right. It's actually a Board of Health issue. David has headed it up because of the way it all worked, but he did a lot of work.
He did.
But I'm Betty really glad he went for his MPA.
Yeah, I think
so he could handle trash. But
the outreach, I think, has been excellent, and it's been done in a variety of methods because you can't. Different people are reached in different ways, but between printed materials, online, TV ads, et cetera, these sessions, I think it's been a good effort to help people understand. And yes, there's going to be changes, but I mean, some people got really borderline agitated. I mean, it's not that different. You're still going to put the trash in the blue bag. You're still going to put the recycling out.
in your recycling
Although
bins,
every week now, though 1 week it's glass and cans, 1 week it's paper. We've got the new pink bag. To me, that's the most exciting part of it all.
My pink bag's
the
almost
textile
full.
recycling.
I can't wait.
I don't like to pay for stuff, so anything I can get rid of, I mean, I try to be a responsible recycler, but I try to recycle as much as I can because I don't want to put it in the bag.
Right.
And now to have a whole new list of materials that formerly were blue bag and now can go for free, that's fabulous.
Yeah, I did learn a lot just listening to a few of those sessions about what isn't recyclable, like frozen food boxes. I had no idea, and those containers that your lettuce comes in. Again, didn't know.
That seems wrong. I mean, it
Because
just
it-
does
because
seem
it
wrong.
does.
clear plastic ones.
The quality of the plastic is such that it cannot be reused into something else.
I thought it was the black plastic.
It's the salad clam shells of this.
The
thing-
black ones.
No,
No,
the
the-
clear ones that we probably go through 10 of every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that people, I mean, that are used in just,
I just learned something. I
So
thought it was in the
I'm stacking them. So I'll put my neuroses out for the public. I'm stacking them up so that when I throw them out,
takes
they
up less
takes
space.
up less space. Yeah,
There you go.
we're almost out of time.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could see that.
Yeah, I gotta kind of scoot around there, but we are almost out of time. We got a minute left. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up for tonight?
Nope.
hope it turns into a warm summer and everybody has a great summer.
As we listen to the rain
Yeah,
pouring
I was
down
going to
on
say,
the
and hope that it
ceiling.
slows down a little bit in 5 minutes so we can get out.
So we can get out of here and get to our meeting. But thank you all for watching, and thank you for joining me and being here tonight. And we'll see you next time on Selectmen's Roundtable.